Foldables have entered the market and they have taken the world by storm. Well, okay, not storm. Perhaps mild rain, because they're here, they've gotten better, they've gotten cheaper, but in terms of global smartphone sales, they definitely haven't taken over by 2022, and it doesn't seem like they're gonna start becoming more popular than everyday traditional smartphones anytime soon, but still a fairly present niche of the market, and of course a lot of people are waiting for Apple to enter the space, because typically it's Apple who makes a lot of technologies and products mainstream, takes it from an enthusiast category into a everyday consumer category. But what does Apple have in store for foldables? It's kind of weird. Let's begin. So Ross Young, who's proven to be a fairly reliable supply chain analyst, is telling us that despite other claims that Apple would be releasing a foldable next year or perhaps in 2024, those have now been pushed back even further. So it was already not like a super near-term leak, but now he's saying that the foldable iPhone is probably not even going to happen until 2025, which in my opinion, that's so far out it means they don't know what they're talking about. Apple hasn't decided on a release because there's no way a product is anywhere near finalized or agreed upon with the Apple chairman and the marketing department if the current supply chain analysts are saying it won't launch until 2025. That is so way out. So much can change in that many years, and while I'm sure internally Apple has lots of foldable prototypes and they're experimenting with the technology, I think it's abundantly clear that they see no rush or no interest in jumping into this market prematurely, which might be ever at all, to be honest, because sure, Samsung with all of their display manufacturing expertise can figure out ways of getting foldables really, really cheap, although we have no clue what the profit margins on those phones are, and they never seem to sell at volume that comes anywhere close to cannibalizing their regular everyday smartphone sales, especially their mid-range ones, which sell the best. And iPhones sell infinitely better than even Samsung's best-selling phones, which means even though foldables have been around for several years now, Apple does not see any rush to enter the market with a foldable product, because I do think that the mass majority of consumers out there see it as, oh, that's kind of cool, that's kind of nifty, but I'm still gonna go with my everyday smartphone because it's made of glass, I don't have a crease or plastic displays to worry about, and the battery life is likely going to be longer for a lower price. And yeah, every single year I hear the same thing. Well, one day it will just be another feature and there won't be any compromises, but if you find a way to make a foldable that's reliable and very durable and have all the same great specs and features of other smartphones, inherently those everyday regular smartphones are gonna have less parts, less complexity, and therefore they'll be available for cheaper. So that's what I think the fundamental limiting factor is with foldables, is just that they don't really offer enough incentive for people to justify the additional cost or the additional compromises that come with owning a foldable device. It's obviously great in the tech community. People watching YouTube videos about foldables, we love this stuff and we think it's amazing that, oh my god, pixels are bending. Look, normally pixels don't do that and now they're moving back and forth. Isn't that insane? Yeah, we're nerds. We're geeks. We find that kind of stuff awesome. Everyday people, they're like, yeah, okay, kind of cool, I guess. And then they continue using their iPhone XR for 5 years with their broken lightning cables. But that's okay. Everyday consumers can do what they want to, but the interesting part of Ross Young's latest report is that Apple is currently, allegedly, prototyping a 20-inch foldable that's meant to be somewhat of a notebook or laptop slash iPad slash external monitor device. And I thought this was an interesting concept because it pointed to the idea of Apple kind of experimenting with new product categories. Obviously, as we know, with iPads and MacBooks, Apple doesn't like blurring the lines between products very often. They're not huge into the two-in-one category, and they typically like iPads to just be iPads and MacBooks to just be MacBooks. That's why iPads are still fundamentally limited by their operating systems, and that's why MacBooks, for the most part, still do not have touchscreens. Touch bar, hang in there. We want more of you. But now that Apple might be experimenting with a giant foldable Touch Bar Max, you could imagine something that has, a virtual keyboard on the bottom. They're getting rid of the Touch Bar, but at the same time, it's planning his triumphant return to take over all the keys and have your trackpad down there. And then when you want a larger size display to be running iPadOS or something, you can fold it all the way down and just have one giant canvas of a display. All I can think of when I hear about Apple prototyping this kind of thing, can you imagine the crease down the middle of this iPad. Can you imagine the fingerprints this thing would collect? And not to mention, imagine a 20-inch display completely made of plastic and how cheap that's gonna feel when you're typing on it, since it's not gonna have a physical keyboard attached. Sounds fairly reminiscent of the Surface Neo kind of product, but this is definitely one of those products I could see in their moonshot department of like, let's try to come up with something weird and wacky, and then they show off some prototype to Tim Cook or Craig, and they're like, no, I think this is a terrible implementation, and we should just keep selling MacBook Pros with HDMI 2.0, because who cares about 2.1? Also, we haven't removed any ports lately. Is there something we can drop? Maybe Johnny Ive would be more interested in this type of technology, but even him and Steve Jobs, I feel like wouldn't be comfortable with the fundamental compromises of the display quality. Not just in durability, because I know I've seen Snazzy Labs throw his Z Flip around all the time. It's very durable, I get it, but Apple would care about the premiumness of the quality when you're touching it and interacting with it, and Apple has been very hesitant to ever use plastic as the main way of interacting with the touchscreen on your device. So that would just inherently feel fairly cheap and definitely would collect a crap ton of fingerprints. And as Apple has clearly shown tons of interest in pushing Magic Keyboard cases on iPad Airs and Pros, even the budget iPad with physical keyboards, I don't think that they would suddenly be totally comfortable going backwards into Touch Bar land and just having an entire virtual keyboard. Maybe you'd have to buy some crazy accessory to flip the physical keyboard on the bottom, so it basically just feels like a MacBook that unfolds into an iPad. But as much as I would love to see these prototypes and all the development going on behind the scenes, I'm gonna go ahead and predict all of this is gonna be scrapped because Apple's too afraid to make these kinds of daring products, or something that the tech community would applaud, but something that everyday consumers would probably have not much interest in. Also, keep in mind that every foldable tablet or foldable laptop that we've ever seen come out has typically costed way more than the equivalent laptop that don't have folding display technology. So yeah, a 20-inch Apple foldable likely would be in the $3,000, $4,000 product category. So I do not see this thing happening at all, despite Apple working on it. I'm not saying that the leakers are making stuff up. I'm not saying that the analysts are wrong. I'm just saying, yes, because this is so far out there and Apple seems to have no interest in rushing these products to market, that combined with the fact that you're kind of bumping up against physics when it comes to trying to make a display fold back and forth routinely. You can try to make it feel as rigid and as premium as you want, but at the end of the day, if it's going to be folding back and forth like that, it's not going to feel as good or be as durable as glass is. It's still gonna scratch with fingernails, and it's fundamentally just always going to cost more than a traditional flat display that doesn't have to warp and can be covered by actual glass. How do you guys feel about a 20-inch foldable iPad slash MacBook? If you could find any general reason for a product like this to exist, or you could see yourself buying one, feel free to let me know down below. This is your Apple Sheep here. I'll see you all in the next one.